The council chamber fell silent as Somin Lee finished her presentation. Around the circular room, representatives from a dozen alien species stared at the holographic display showing Sector Theta 9. The image rotated slowly, showing swirling colors of red and purple where gravitational storms tore through space itself. "Your request is denied," said the Velkari representative, his tall frame casting shadows across the chamber floor. 17 expeditions have entered that sector. None returned. We will not add humanity to that list. Somin stood her ground, though her hands gripped the podium tightly. With respect, those expeditions happened before modern shielding technology existed. Humanity has developed new systems that could what? Interrupted the Fotai delegate, her crystalline body chiming with each word. Could save you from gravitational forces that crushed our strongest vessels? Could protect you from radiation that melted Drakmiri armor plating? You are children playing with fire. The other delegates murmured their agreement. Somin looked around the room, seeing the same expression on every face. Pity mixed with condescension. To them, humans were the newest members of the galactic community, barely 2 generations into space exploration. They thought they knew better. "The vote is final," the Velkari announced. "Sector Theta 9 remains under absolute quarantine. This discussion is over." Somin gathered her materials and left the chamber, her jaw tight with frustration. In the corridor outside, she activated her communicator. "It's done." They said no. "Expected," came the reply from Admiral Chun back on Earth. "Move to Plan B." 3 days later, the exploration vessel Resilience departed from Earth's orbital shipyard. Captain Una Park stood on the bridge, watching her home planet shrink in the view screen. She was 34 years old, had spent half her life in space, and had never commanded a mission this important. "Course laid in for the Theta 9 boundary," reported Lieutenant Minho Choi from the tactical station. "We should reach the perimeter in 6 days." Una nodded. "Keep it quiet. No unnecessary communications. As far as anyone knows, we're conducting routine patrol operations." Dr. Jinwoo Han entered the bridge carrying a datapad, his face animated with excitement. "I've been analyzing the sensor logs from the failed expeditions. There's a pattern in the gravitational fluctuations. It's subtle, but it's there." "What kind of pattern?" Una asked. "That's the thing. It shouldn't have a pattern. Natural gravitational anomalies are chaotic, but these have rhythm, structure, almost like they're artificial." Minho turned from his station, frowning. "You're saying someone created those conditions deliberately?" "I'm saying it's worth investigating," Jinwoo replied. "If there's any intelligence behind those anomalies, we need to understand it before we go charging in." The journey to Sector Theta 9 took exactly 6 days. The crew spent that time running simulations and testing their experimental shielding systems. Engineer Hana Kim barely slept, constantly adjusting the shield harmonics to account for the conditions they expected to encounter. "The problem is, we're guessing," she told Una during a late-night meeting. "Every species that entered that sector had different shielding technology. All of it failed. We won't know if ours works until we're already inside. That's why we're taking it slow," Una said. "We cross the boundary, gather data, and pull back if things get too dangerous. No heroics." Minho, who had been reviewing tactical reports, looked up sharply. "Captain, these records are worse than I thought. The Velkari ship lasted 68 hours before losing all power. The Fotai made it 41 hours before their hull breached. The Drakmiri expedition just vanished. No distress call, no debris, nothing. And we're flying in there with untested equipment." "Tested equipment failed," Jinwoo pointed out. "Maybe untested is exactly what we need." The Resilience dropped out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of Sector Theta 9. The view screen showed a sight that made even Una's breath catch. Space itself looked wrong. Stars bent around invisible masses, their light stretching into spirals. Clouds of purple and red energy drifted like storm fronts, and every few seconds, reality seemed to ripple as gravitational waves passed through the region. "Sensors are going crazy," Hana reported. "I'm reading gravitational fluctuations that shouldn't be possible. Time dilation pockets scattered throughout the sector, and radiation levels that spike every 11 minutes like clockwork." "Like clockwork," Jinwoo repeated. "There's that pattern again. Natural phenomena don't keep schedules." Yuna made her decision. "Take us across the boundary. 1 kilometer inside, then hold position." The Resilience moved forward slowly. The moment they crossed into Sector Theta 9, every alarm on the ship started screaming. The gravity plating beneath their feet lurched, luring crew members against their stations. The lights flickered as power fluctuated wildly. "Shields holding," Hana called out, her fingers flying across her console. "Barely. I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems." Minho gripped his station as another gravitational wave hit. "Captain, we should pull back. We're taking damage." "Not yet," Yuna said, though she felt the same fear he did. "Jinwoo, what are your sensors showing?" The scientist was staring at his display with wide eyes. "I'm picking up something. An energy signature, very faint. It's artificial. I'm certain of it. Coming from deep inside the sector. A ship? No. It's too stable, too constant. More like a station or a structure. And it's been broadcasting for a very long time. Centuries, maybe longer." Another violent shudder ran through the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console. They had been inside the sector for less than 10 minutes, and the Resilience was already struggling. "Captain," Minho said urgently, "we need to leave now. The hull is showing stress fractures." Yuna looked at the sensor display, showing that distant energy signature. Someone or something was out there, deeper in this nightmare region than any expedition had ever gone. If they left now, they might never get another chance to find out what it was. "Mark the coordinates of that signal," she ordered. "Hana, prepare to reverse course." "Coordinates locked," Jinwoo confirmed. "All hands, brace for withdrawal," Yuna announced over the ship-wide comm. "We're pulling back." The Resilience retreated across the boundary, and immediately the violent shaking stopped. The crew took collective breath as systems stabilized. They had survived their first encounter with Sector Theta 9, lasting exactly 14 minutes. In her ready room an hour later, Yuna reviewed the data they had collected. Minho and Jinwoo sat across from her, both looking exhausted. "We barely made it a kilometer inside," Minho said. "That energy signature is over 200 kilometers into the sector. We'll never reach it." "Not with our current approach," Jinwoo agreed. "But I've been analyzing the gravitational patterns. They follow a cycle 8 distinct phases that repeat every 43 minutes. If we time our entry right, we could ride the calmer phases deeper into the sector. And when those phases shift?" Minho asked. "Then we'd better be somewhere stable." Yuna studied the data, seeing what Jinwoo meant. The sector was deadly, but it wasn't random. There was structure, purpose, design. Someone had made this place into a killing field, but they had also left clues about how to navigate it. "We're going back," she said finally. "But this time, we're going to do it right. We're going to reach that signal and find out what's waiting for us." Minho shook his head, but didn't argue. He knew that tone in his captain's voice. The decision was made. Outside the ship, Sector Theta 9 churned and twisted, keeping its secrets. But for the first time in recorded history, someone was preparing to steal those secrets away. Humanity had come to the deadliest zone in the galaxy, and they weren't planning to leave empty-handed. The Resilience spent 3 days at the edge of Sector Theta 9, studying the patterns that Jinwoo had discovered. The crew worked in shifts, mapping the gravitational cycles and radiation bursts, looking for windows of opportunity. Hana modified the shield systems hourly, adjusting frequencies to match the data they collected. "I think I've got it," Jinwoo announced during a briefing in the mess hall. Most of the senior crew had gathered, tired and nervous, but determined. The sector operates in 8-phase cycles. Phases 3 and 7 are the calmest, if we can call anything in there calm. If we enter during Phase 3 and make steady progress, we can advance about 30 kilometers before we need to find shelter. "Shelter where?" asked Hana. "There's nothing in there but death." "Actually, there are stable pockets." Jinwoo brought up a holographic map. Small areas where the gravitational forces cancel each other out. Think of them as eyes in a hurricane. We jump from pocket to pocket, resting and repairing between jumps. Minho studied the map with a critical eye. "And if we mistime a jump? If we're caught between pockets when the cycle shifts?" The silence that followed answered his question. "We don't mistime it," Yuna said simply. "We plan carefully, we move carefully, and we don't take unnecessary risks." "Jinwoo, how long will it take to reach the energy signature using this method?" "At best, 5 days. More likely 7 or 8. "That's a long time to spend in hell," someone muttered. Yuna stood, addressing the entire room. "I'm not ordering anyone to come. This mission just got a lot more dangerous than anyone anticipated. If you want to stay with the ship at the boundary, no one will think less of you. But I'm going in, and I need volunteers." Every hand in the room went up. They entered Sector Theta 9 at the beginning of Phase 3, exactly as planned. This time, the Resilience pushed deeper, making it 15 kilometers before the conditions became too violent. Jinwoo guided them to the first stable pocket, a small bubble of relatively calm space, barely large enough for the ship. "Shields at 40%, Hana reported. "Hull integrity at 82%. "We took more damage than expected. Can you repair it?" Yuna asked. "Given enough time, yes. But we can't stay in this pocket forever. According to my calculations, it will collapse in about 9 hours when the gravitational fields shift." They rested for 6 hours, making repairs and gathering more data. When Phase 3 came around again, they moved deeper. This became their rhythm. Advance during the calm phases, shelter during the violent ones, repair what broke, and push forward again. On the second day, they found the wreckage. The Velkari ship hung in space like a broken toy, its hull twisted into shapes that physics shouldn't allow. Parts of it were compressed to a fraction of their original size, while other sections had been stretched impossibly thin. The crew of the Resilience stared at it in horrified silence. "Gravitational shearing," Jinwoo said quietly. "They must have been caught between 2 massive gravity wells when they pulled in opposite directions." "How many crew?" someone asked. 240, Nino answered, checking the records. This was the Valkyries' pride, their best exploration ship. It lasted longer than any other expedition. 68 hours. Yuna felt the weight of those numbers. 240 people who thought they were prepared, who had better technology than humanity possessed, who had more experience in space than any human alive. All dead. "Captain," Minho said carefully, "we should turn back. This is what happens when you push too far into this sector. We've been lucky so far, but luck runs out." "We're not turning back," Yuna said, though her voice was harder than she intended. "We came here to reach that signal. Those Valkyrie died trying to brute force their way through. We're being smarter. We're using the sector's patterns instead of fighting them. And if the patterns change, then we adapt. That's what humans do." They left the wreckage behind and pushed deeper. By the third day, they had covered over 100 kilometers. The crew was exhausted, The ship was holding together with repairs upon repairs, and everyone's nerves were stretched thin. Small arguments broke out over minor issues. The stress was getting to them. Yuna found Jingwu in his lab late one night, staring at readouts that covered every screen. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You should rest," she said. "Can't. I'm too close to something?" He gestured at the displays. "These patterns aren't natural, Yuna. I'm absolutely certain now. Someone engineered this entire sector. The gravitational anomalies, the radiation bursts, even the stable pockets, they're all deliberate. Why would anyone create something like this? That's what I keep asking myself. It's too organized to be a weapons. Don't need to be this complex. And it's too dangerous to be a home. Unless..." He trailed off, his eyes widening. "Unless it's a test. A test for what? I don't know yet. But that energy signature we're heading toward? I think it's the prize for passing the test. And every species that came before us failed. On the fourth day, they encountered something that changed everything. As they crossed into another stable pocket, the sensors detected something that shouldn't exist. A functioning piece of technology. Drifting in the void, Hana led a team in environment suits to retrieve it. The object was a probe, but not from any species in the Galactic Council's database. Its design was elegant, using the same principles that made the stable pockets possible. It was harvesting energy from the gravitational anomalies themselves. "This is impossible," Hana breathed, examining it in the cargo bay. "It's turning the sector's deadliest feature into a power source. Whoever built this understood these conditions better than we understand our own physics." Jinwu was already scanning it. "Look at this. The materials are unknown, but the design principles are comprehensible. Whoever made this wanted others to understand it. They left a trail of breadcrumbs. Over the next 2 days, they found 3 more probes. Each one was slightly more advanced than the last, each one teaching them new ways to work with the sector's extreme conditions rather than against them. Hannah began incorporating the principles into the resilience systems, and the ship's performance improved dramatically. "It's like a tutorial," Jinwu said during another briefing. "They're teaching us how to survive here. Step by step, piece by piece." "Who are they?" Yuna asked. "I'm calling them the architects, and I think we're about to meet them." The energy signature was now only 30 kilometers away. They could almost feel its pull, a steady beacon in the chaos. But the space between their current position and that signal was the most violent region they had encountered. The gravitational forces there could rip the resilience apart in seconds. "There's no safe window," Minot reported, his voice tight with tension. "Every phase is deadly in that region. We can't cross it." Yuna studied the data, feeling the crushing weight of being so close yet so far. They had come over 200 kilometers into a sector that had killed thousands. Survived conditions that destroyed ships better than theirs. And now they were stopped just short of their goal. "The probes," Hana said suddenly. "They navigated this region. How?" Jinwu pulled up the probe designs, studying them with fresh eyes. "They don't fight the gravity wells. They use them. They're designed to be caught by one well, slingshot around it, and be caught by the next. It's like riding a series of waterfalls." "The resilience is too big for that," Minot objected. "But a shuttle isn't," Yuna said. "The plan was insane. Take a small shuttle, modified with architect technology, and ride the gravitational currents to the signal source. The shuttle would be unmanned at first, carrying only sensors. If it survived, then they would know a living crew could make the journey." They launched the shuttle during Phase 7. For 10 agonizing minutes, they watched it get tossed between massive gravity wells, its hull groaning under forces that should have torn it apart. The architect modifications held. The shuttle reached the signal source and transmitted its findings. what they saw on the screens made the entire crew go silent. A massive station hung in the calmest pocket of space they had seen. Sitting in the exact center of the sector where all the gravitational forces balanced perfectly. The station was huge, built by hands unknown, and according to the sensors, parts of it were still powered and functional after what must have been centuries of abandonment. "We found it," Jinwoo whispered. "We actually found it." Yuna looked at her crew, seeing the same exhausted triumph on every face. They had done what 17 other expeditions couldn't. They had reached the heart of the deadliest sector in the galaxy. "Prepare a second shuttle," she ordered. "This time, we're going with it." The shuttle ride through the gravitational maelstrom was the most terrifying experience of Yuna's life. She sat in the co-pilot seat while Hana flew, with Jinwoo and Minho strapped in behind them. The small craft bucked and twisted as massive gravity wells caught and released them, flinging them forward like a stone skipping across water. "This is insane," Minho shouted over the roar of stressed metal. "We're all going to die." "Not yet," Hana said through gritted teeth, her hands locked on controls that barely responded. "The architect modifications are holding. Trust the math." Jinwoo had his eyes closed, either praying or calculating. Probably both. The shuttle spun through space, following a path that seemed random, but was actually precisely choreographed by gravitational forces that the architects had mapped thousands of years ago. Then, suddenly, they were through. The shuttle glided into the calm pocket at the sector's heart, and the violent shaking stopped. Through the view screen, the station loomed before them, massive and ancient and impossibly beautiful. "I'm reading atmosphere," Jinwoo said, checking his instruments with shaking hands. "The station is pressurized. Temperature is stable. Artificial gravity is functioning. After all this time?" Minho asked. "How is that possible?" "The same way everything else here is possible. The architects were centuries beyond anything we understand." Hana guided the shuttle into a docking bay that opened automatically as they approached. The mechanism was smooth and precise, as if it had been used yesterday instead of millennia ago. When the bay doors sealed behind them and atmosphere flooded in, every indicator showed the environment was safe for human life. They stepped out of the shuttle in full environment suits anyway, not trusting the readings until they could verify them personally. The docking bay was enormous, capable of holding dozens of ships their size. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft blue light. "The writing is everywhere," Jinwoo said, recording everything with his helmet camera. "If we can translate it, we might understand what this place is." They found an entrance and stepped into the station proper. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings larger than humans. Emergency lighting activated as they walked, creating a path through the darkness. The architecture was elegant and purposeful, every surface covered with those glowing symbols. "I'm picking up a strong power signature ahead," Hana reported. "The station's main reactor, maybe." "It's still running at 30% capacity." They followed the power signature deeper into the station. Along the way, they passed rooms filled with equipment they couldn't identify, laboratories with experiments frozen in time, and living quarters designed for a species that no longer existed. "There's no bodies," Minho observed. "No remains, no indication of what happened to them." "They left," Jinwoo said. "Look at this place. Everything is organized, stored properly. This isn't a disaster scene." They abandoned the station deliberately. The power signature led them to a central chamber so large that their helmet lights couldn't reach the far walls. In the center stood a cylindrical structure 30 meters tall, pulsing with blue energy. As they approached, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, and a voice filled the chamber. It spoke in a language none of them knew, but the meaning appeared directly in their minds. A translation technology far beyond anything the Galactic Council possessed. Welcome, travelers. You have passed the threshold. You have proven your worth. Yuna stepped forward. Who are you? What is this place? The voice continued, ignoring her questions. We are the architects. We shaped this sector into a proving ground for those who would come after us. 17 species attempted the journey. 17 species failed. You are the 18th to try. You are the first to succeed. Why create something so deadly? Jinwoo asked. What were you testing for? Images appeared in the air around them, holographic displays showing the history of the architects. They had been a powerful species, masters of gravitational technology, who had spread across 100 worlds. But their power had made them arrogant. They had pushed too far, experimented too recklessly, and created a weapon that destroyed their entire civilization in a single terrible mistake. We learned too late that power without wisdom leads to extinction, the voice said. Before our end, we built this place. A test for those who would find our technology. Only a species with the right qualities should inherit what we created. What qualities? Yuna asked. The holographic images changed, showing the 17 failed expeditions. The Velkari with their superior technology, trying to force their way through with brute strength. The Fotai with their advanced shields, trusting in their defenses alone. The Drakmiri with their military precision, treating the sector like an enemy to be conquered. They all failed because they did not adapt, the voice explained. They brought what worked for them in normal space and expected it to work here. They did not learn. They did not change. They did not persist when their methods failed. Then the images showed humanity's approach. The careful study of patterns. A modification of technology based on what they learned. The refusal to give up when the easy path proved impossible. The willingness to change their entire strategy rather than retreat. You succeeded because you are flexible. You survive by adapting, not by dominating. This is the quality we sought. This is why you have earned the right to our legacy. The central cylinder opened, revealing chambers filled with technology beyond anything they had imagined. Gravitational manipulation devices that could move planets. Power systems that drew energy from the fabric of space itself. Medical technology that could extend life indefinitely. Weapons that could crack moons. Take what you have earned, the voice said. Leave this place and rejoin your species. Bring them our gifts. Yuna stared at the incredible technology, feeling the weight of the decision before her. This was enough to make humanity the most powerful species in the galaxy overnight. Ships that could travel faster than anything else. Weapons that could ensure Earth's safety forever. Technology that would solve countless problems. What's the catch? Minho asked suspiciously. There is no deception, the voice replied. You have passed our test. The technology is yours to claim. You may leave whenever you wish. Jinwoo was already moving toward the chambers, his scientist's curiosity overcoming caution. This is incredible. We could revolutionize everything we know about physics, medicine, engineering, everything. But Yuna remained where she stood, thinking about the holographic history they had been shown. A powerful civilization destroyed by their own arrogance. And now they were offering that same power to humanity. What happened to you? She asked the voice. Really, not just the weapon. What destroyed the architects? The voice was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something like sadness in the translation. We forgot that technology is not wisdom. We gained the power to reshape reality, but lost the patience to consider if we should. We moved too fast, reached too far, and paid the ultimate price. This station was our final act of warning and a gift combined. Yuna walked around the central chamber, studying the technology, thinking about what taking it would mean. Earth could become powerful overnight. But would humanity use that power wisely? Would they learn from the architect's mistakes, or would they repeat them? You said we earned this by adapting, she said slowly. By learning instead of conquering. By persisting when others quit. Yes. Then we're not done learning. And we're not ready to leave. Jinwoo turned to stare at her. What are you saying? I'm saying that taking this technology and running would be the easy path. The Velkari path. The path that fails. Yuna gestured at the station around them. But staying here, learning to live in these conditions, truly understanding what the architects created, that's the hard path. That's the human path. You want to stay? Minho asked, disbelief in his voice. In the deadliest sector in the galaxy? I want to build here. I want to understand this place completely before we take anything from it. The architects didn't just test if we could reach this station. They tested if we'd be wise enough to not grab power without understanding it. The voice spoke again, and this time there was something like approval in its tone. In all our projections, in all our calculations, we never considered this choice. Every species we imagined would either fail to reach this place or would take what they found and leave. You propose a third option. We propose to stay and learn, Yuna said firmly. To build a permanent presence here. To truly adapt to this sector instead of just surviving long enough to escape it. That's what humans do. We don't just visit impossible places. We move in. Captain, Minho said carefully. The Galactic Council will never allow it. They'll say we're hoarding architect technology. They might even use force to stop us. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. But I'm not making this decision just for us. I'm making it for every human who comes after. We don't want to be the species that found incredible power and used it unwisely. We want to be the species that earned it, understood it, and used it right. Jinwoo was nodding slowly. You're right. If we just take this technology without understanding it, we become the architects. We repeat their mistakes. But if we stay, if we learn to actually live here, we become something new, Hana finished. Something better. The voice from the station spoke one final time. Then stay, humans. Learn what we could not. Build what we failed to build. Perhaps you will succeed where we failed. Perhaps you will use our legacy with the wisdom we lacked. Yuna activated her communicator, sending a message back to the Resilience, and through them, back to Earth. This is Captain Yuna Park. We have reached the station. We have found the architect legacy, and we're not coming home. We're building a new one. Send supplies, send volunteers, send anyone willing to help. We're making Sector Theta 9 our new home. Humanity is here to stay. The message would take time to reach Earth. The response would take even longer. But Yuna knew what it would be. Humans never turned down a challenge. They never walked away from the impossible. They would come in their hundreds and thousands, ready to build something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. The deadliest zone in space was about to become humanity's greatest achievement. The response from Earth came faster than Yuna expected. Within a week, the United Space Command sent an encrypted message. Volunteers assembling. First convoy departs in 30 days. Hold position. Make it work. The Galactic Council's response was equally swift, but far less supportive. Somin Lee contacted them from the council chambers, her face tight with stress on the video feed. They're furious, she reported. The Velkari are calling it theft of architect property. The Fotai say, you're endangering the entire galaxy by tampering with technology you don't understand. 3 species have filed formal protests. They're demanding you leave immediately and surrender all architect materials to council authority. Yuna sat in what had become her temporary office on the station. Surrounded by glowing architect displays, she was slowly learning to read. Tell them the architects left this place as a test, not a treasure vault. We passed. They didn't. we're not surrendering anything. They're talking about sending a fleet to force you out. Let them try. They'll have to make it through Sector Theta 9 first. We barely did it with everything we learned, and we had the architects helping us. Any fleet they send will be torn apart before it gets close. Somin sighed. You're backing them into a corner, Yuna. They can't allow humans to have exclusive access to technology this advanced. It shifts the entire balance of galactic power. Then we won't keep it exclusive. Tell the Council we'll share everything we learn, freely and openly, with any species willing to. Put in the work to understand it. But they don't get to walk in and take it because they're scared of humans having it first. Over the next month, Yuna's small team worked around the clock to make the station livable for the hundreds of people who would soon arrive. Hannah led teams in reactivating dormant systems, learning to interface human technology with architect designs. Jin-Woo cataloged everything they found, building a database of architect knowledge. Minho, despite his initial reluctance, proved invaluable in planning the logistics of a permanent settlement. The station was vast. They had explored maybe 10% of it. Entire sections remained sealed, waiting for them to understand the access protocols. But what they had discovered was already transforming their understanding of physics, biology, and engineering. Look at this, Jinwoo said one day, practically vibrating with excitement. He showed Yuna a chamber filled with plants, if you could call them plants. They grew in zero soil, drew energy directly from gravitational fluctuations, and produced oxygen as a byproduct. The architects engineered life that thrives in extreme conditions. We could use these principles to terraform worlds we previously thought were impossible to settle. One step at a time, Yuna cautioned, though she felt the same excitement. First, we make this station work. Then we worry about changing worlds. The first convoy arrived exactly 30 days after Yuna's initial message. 12 ships carrying over 400 volunteers, along with supplies, equipment, and the hopes of everyone back on Earth who believed humanity could do the impossible. Guiding those ships through Sector Theta 9 was terrifying. Yuna watched from the station as the convoy followed the path she had mapped, using the techniques she had learned, making the same dangerous journey her team had survived. 3 ships took damage severe enough to require emergency repairs. One nearly lost power completely and had to be towed by another vessel, but they all made it through. When the first volunteers stepped onto the station, Yuna felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope that this crazy plan might actually work. Among the new arrivals were engineers, scientists, doctors, teachers, and even a few families with children. People willing to bet their lives on humanity's ability to adapt. You're insane, one of the engineers told her, looking around at the alien architecture with wide eyes. All of you. This is the deadliest place in the galaxy, and you want to build a city here. We're already building it, Yuna replied. Question is whether you're going to help or just complain. The engineer grinned. I'm definitely helping. Wouldn't miss this for anything. The settlement grew rapidly. They named it Threshold Station because it stood at the threshold between what humanity was and what it could become. Within 3 months, over 1,000 people lived there. Within 6 months, that number doubled. They learned to work with the station systems instead of replacing them. Hana discovered that architect technology was designed to be understood and modified, almost like it was meant to be a teaching tool. Every system they activated revealed new principles, new possibilities. Children adapted fastest of all. The first baby born at Threshold Station was a girl named Nari, daughter of 2 engineers. By the time she was 6 months old, she seemed more comfortable with the station's peculiarities than the adults. She slept soundly through gravitational fluctuations that made grown adults nauseous. She played in sections where the gravity shifted unpredictably, laughing as she floated from floor to ceiling and back again. She doesn't know it's supposed to be impossible. Her mother explained to Yuna. To her, this is normal. This is home. The Galactic Council continued to protest, but their tone began to change as months passed and Threshold Station not only survived, but thrived. Other species attempted to establish their own presence in Sector Theta 9, using the paths humanity had mapped. All of them failed. The sector allowed humans to pass, but rejected everyone else. Jinwoo had a theory about that. The Architect AI is still active, still evaluating. It let us stay because we made the choice to learn instead of just take. The other species are trying to exploit the sector, not live in it. The AI recognizes the difference. Soman visited Threshold Station a year after its founding, making the dangerous journey through the sector to see for herself what humanity had built. She walked through corridors where human and architect technology merged seamlessly, where children played in parks that shouldn't exist, where scientists made discoveries daily that reshaped galactic understanding. A council wants to negotiate. She told Yuna over dinner in a cafeteria that served 2,000 people. They're willing to recognize Sector Theta 9 as human sovereign territory in exchange for access to architect technology. What kind of access? Shared research. Joint projects. They want to send their own scientists here to study alongside humans. Yuna considered this. They can send scientists, but they have to live here. Full-time, minimum commitment of 2 years. And they have to contribute to the settlement, not just take data and leave. They won't agree to that. Then they don't get access. We're not running a museum, Soman. We're building a civilization. Anyone who wants to be part of that is welcome, but they have to actually be part of it. To everyone's surprise, several species accepted those terms. Scientists from the Velkari, Frotai, and even the isolationist Drakmiri applied to join Threshold Station. They came expecting to study ancient architect technology. What they found instead was something more surprising. Humans had taken that technology and were already improving it. How is this possible? A Velkari scientist named Kresh asked, examining a power system that Hana had modified. Our species has studied physics for 10,000 years, and you've only been in space for 200. How are you advancing architect designs? Hana shrugged. We don't assume we know better. We listen to what the technology is trying to teach us. And when we don't understand something, we experiment until we do. But you could destroy something irreplaceable. Or we could make it better. The architects wanted someone to move their work forward, not just preserve it like a museum piece. This attitude baffled the alien scientists at first. They were used to approaching ancient technology with reverence and caution, treating every artifact as sacred. Humans treated it as a starting point, something to understand and build upon. But gradually, the alien scientists began to adapt to the human approach. They started experimenting instead of just observing. They started asking, what if, instead of why? And their own research improved as a result. 2 years after Threshold Station's founding, Yuna stood in the central chamber where they had first met the architect, AI. The chamber had been transformed into a memorial hall, honoring both the architects who had created this place and the 17 species who had died trying to reach it. We haven't forgotten what it cost to get here, she said to the gathered crowd of over 5,000 humans and 200 aliens. We remember every ship that failed, every crew that died trying to reach this place. We built this station on their sacrifice, and we owe it to them to use what we've learned wisely. The architect AI, which had been largely silent since that first contact, spoke up for the first time in months. You have exceeded our expectations, humans. We designed this station to test for adaptability and persistence. We did not anticipate cooperation. We did not foresee different species learning from each other, building together. You tested individuals, Jinwoo replied. He had been studying the AI's programming, learning how it thought. But humans aren't individuals. We're communities. We're strongest when we work together, when we share knowledge and support each other. You couldn't predict that because the architects lost it before their end. Perhaps we did, the AI agreed. Perhaps that is why we failed where you succeed. You maintain connection. You build together. This is worth more than any technology we created. Yuna looked out over the crowd. Seeing humans and aliens working side by side, children playing in the corridors, scientists debating theories in a dozen languages. Threshold Station had become more than a human settlement. It was becoming something new, a place where species learned to move beyond their limitations together. The deadliest zone in the galaxy was transforming into the most diverse community anyone had ever built. And they were just getting started. Outside the station, Sector Theta 9 continued its deadly dance of gravitational storms and radiation bursts. But inside, life flourished in ways the architects had never imagined. Humanity had stepped into the impossible, chosen to stay, and built something beautiful in the heart of chaos. And they were never leaving. 3 years after humanity first entered Sector Theta 9, Threshold Station had become something no one could have predicted. The population had grown to over 8,000 permanent residents, with another 2,000 rotating through on research assignments. The station had expanded to include 6 additional architect platforms discovered throughout the sector, all connected by transit systems that used gravitational currents like rivers.Yuna stood in her office, overlooking the main residential district, watching children race through corridors designed by beings that had been dead for millennia. Those children moved with an ease that still amazed her. They had been born in high gravity, low gravity, shifting gravity. Their bodies adapted in ways the first generation of colonists never could. Administrator Park, a voice called. She still wasn't used to the title. She was a ship captain, not a politician. But Threshold needed leadership, and somehow she had ended up with the job. Jinwoo entered, looking tired but excited. He always looked that way these days. We finished the translation of the Southern Archive. You need to see this. The Southern Archive had taken 2 years to access. The architect eye had kept it sealed until humanity proved it could handle the knowledge responsibly. What Jinwoo showed her made Yuna sit down heavily. They knew, she said, staring at the translated records. The architects knew they were going to destroy themselves. This archive is their apology to whoever came after. The records were detailed and heartbreaking. The architects had achieved incredible things: immortality, unlimited energy, the ability to reshape matter itself. But their society had fractured under the weight of their own power. Factions formed, each believing they knew the right way to use their technology. Cooperation broke down. Trust eroded. And finally, one faction used a weapon that unraveled the quantum fabric of their home system, killing billions in seconds. They didn't die from stupidity, Jinwoo said quietly. They died from division. From forgetting that they needed each other. Is that why the AI tested for cooperation? Why it values community over individual strength? I think so. I think that's the lesson they wanted to pass on. Technology means nothing if you can't work together to use it right. A priority alert interrupted them. Hannah's voice came through the comm system. Administrator, we have incoming ships. A lot of them. The Galactic Council is sending a delegation, and they brought company. Yuna hurried to the observation deck. Through the massive windows, she could see ships approaching Threshold Station. Not just a few dozens of them, representing every major species in the Council. They hung at the edge of the sector's calm zone, clearly unwilling to risk the journey through the gravitational storms. They want to talk. Someone's face appeared on a communication screen. She was aboard the lead council ship. Formally, they're ready to negotiate a treaty regarding Sector Theta 9 and the Architect legacy. The negotiations took place aboard a neutral vessel, a massive diplomatic ship that had been specially modified to withstand the sector's edge conditions. Yuna attended with Jinwoo, Hana, and Minho, representing humanity's interests. Across the table sat representatives from 12 species, including the Valkyrie, Fotai, and Drakmiri leadership. The Valkyrie spoke first. 3 years ago, we thought you were committing suicide. We thought humanity's arrogance would get you all killed. Instead, you've built something unprecedented. You've made the impossible look easy. It wasn't easy, Yuna replied. We lost 47 people in the first year alone. Accidents, equipment failures, mistakes we made because we didn't understand the technology well enough. It's never been easy. Yet you persisted, the Fotai said. And now you control access to the most advanced technology in the known galaxy. You could demand anything from the Council. So tell us, what do you want? Yuna looked at her team, then back at the assembled representatives. We want what we've always wanted. The freedom to build our home in peace. Recognition that Sector Theta 9 is human sovereign territory. And an agreement that we'll share what we learn with any species willing to put in the work to understand it. Willing to live there, you mean? The Drakmiri interjected. You require researchers to immigrate permanently. That's an unreasonable demand. It's the only demand that works, Hana said. The architect technology isn't something you can understand in a few months. It takes years of living with it, working with it daily, seeing how it integrates with the sector's conditions. Tourists can't learn that. Only residents can. The negotiations continued for days. The Council wanted guarantees that humanity wouldn't weaponize architect technology. They wanted oversight and restrictions. Yuna pushed back on every limitation, arguing that the architects had left their legacy for those who proved worthy. And humanity had proven it. Finally, they reached an agreement. Sector Theta 9 would be recognized as the first human sovereign territory outside Earth's solar system. Threshold Station would remain under human administration. Other species could send permanent residents to study and work there, but they had to contribute to the settlement's growth and abide by human governance. In exchange, humanity agreed to share all non-military architect technology with the Galactic Council, and to allow Council observers to verify that no weapons of mass destruction were being developed. There's one more thing, the Valkyrie said as they prepared to finalize the treaty. We want to know why. Why does the sector let you survive when it kills everyone else? We've sent 3 more expeditions in the last 2 years, using your maps and methods. All failed. Why? Yuna had expected this question. The architect AI told us the sector tests for specific qualities: adaptability, persistence, cooperation. But I think there's something more. I think it tests whether you're trying to conquer the sector or make peace with it. That's absurd, the Drakmiri scoffed. It's empty space and gravitational forces. It doesn't have opinions, doesn't it? Jinwoo pulled up data showing the sector's responses to different species. Every time someone enters with purely extractive intent to take architect technology and leave, the conditions become more severe. But when humans enter with the intent to stay, to build, to become part of the sector, it becomes slightly more manageable. The AI is still active, still evaluating every ship that crosses the boundary. You're saying the sector is choosing humans? I'm saying the architects built this place to find a species that would honor their legacy properly, not by preserving it untouched, and not by exploiting it recklessly, but by building on it responsibly. So far, only humans have demonstrated that approach. The treaty was signed 3 weeks later in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Threshold Station became the first independent human territory recognized by the Galactic Council in their 10,000-year history. It was a moment of triumph, but Yuna felt the weight of responsibility more than celebration. Back at Threshold, life continued as it always had. The treaty changed politics, but it didn't change the daily reality of living in the galaxy's deadliest sector. People still worked to maintain systems, still made new discoveries, still pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Yuna found Minho in the memorial hall, standing before the wall that listed the names of everyone who had died trying to reach or build Threshold Station. The number had grown to 73 names over 3 years. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked without turning around. "The decision to stay?" "Every time I see a new name added to this wall," Yuna admitted. "But then I walk through the residential districts and see kids like Nari who are born here, who think gravitational storms are normal. I see scientists making breakthroughs that will save lives across the galaxy. I see species that have been rivals for centuries working together here because they have to. And I think maybe the cost was worth it." "The Velkari asked me how many more will die before we're done building," Minho said. "I didn't have an answer." "Neither do I. But I know that every person here chose to come. They knew the risks. They came anyway because they believed in what we're building." 5 years after Yuna's first message from the Architect Station, Threshold's population passed 15,000. The settlement had grown beyond anything the original crew imagined. Multiple residential districts, research facilities, schools, hospitals, and even entertainment districts filled the ancient Architect platforms. The station had become fully self-sufficient, producing its own food using Architect bioengineering principles, recycling everything, drawing unlimited power from the gravitational forces that had once made the sector deadly. Children born there had never seen Earth, didn't think of anywhere else as home, and they were different from their parents in subtle but important ways. Faster reflexes to deal with shifting gravity, better spatial awareness, improved resistance to radiation. Natural selection was already at work, creating the first generation of humans adapted specifically for extreme environments. "We're changing," Xinwu told Yuna during one of their regular research reviews. "Threshold humans are developing characteristics that set them apart from Earth humans. Give it another few generations, and the differences will be significant. Is that bad? No, it's evolution. It's adaptation. It's exactly what the Architects wanted to encourage." The Galactic Council slowly accepted Threshold's existence, though tensions remained. Some species resented humanity's success, believing they deserved the Architect legacy more than the upstart newcomers. Others saw Threshold as proof that rigid thinking and ancient pride were weaknesses in a changing galaxy. But the scientists and engineers who actually lived at Threshold cared little for galactic politics. They were too busy making impossible things real. The first ship designed entirely with Architect principles launched from Threshold's shipyards, capable of traveling twice as fast as any Council vessel. Medical treatments developed from Architect biotechnology began curing diseases that had plagued species for millennia.